So Amazing Spider-Man number 75 is finally here, and we're starting the Amazing Spider-Man Beyond chapter. So what do we think of that, and what is Peter Parker's fate by the end of this issue? Well, spoiler alert, 'cause we're going to talk about all of that, but before I do, my comic book, Malevolent Rising, issue number 5, and all the issues are currently on a campaign that's in demand on Indiegogo. I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the description if you want to check out my comic. Now, on with the review. So, Amazing Spider-Man number 75. So, this has been hyped for quite a while now. Nick Spencer's run is over, ended with 74. And now we have this new era of Spider-Man beginning where Ben Reilly is going to be taking the reins of Spider-Man for the foreseeable future, going forward at least. So how do we come to that? Well, let's get into the issue. So this issue starts off where number 74 left off. So Spider-Man is kind of dealing with the fallout from that. Harry's dead again, for good this time apparently. And it's taking its toll on him. Spider-Man starts this issue just kind of exhausted. And he sneaks out because he's about to tell others that Harry is gone, especially Harry's friend, Robbie Robertson's son. And he decides to go out and get some fresh air and swing around. And what does he see but another Spider-Man swinging through the city? So he follows the Spider-Man, and the two of them finally meet up at the top of a building, and he wants to have a little heart-to-heart with him. But the Spider-Man takes off and leaves, and Spider-Man tries to chase him, but this Spider-Man's got a suit full of gadgetry, and he is able to overcome Spider-Man's webs and essentially outwit him with some drones and some other technology. So, later on in the issue, while Peter Parker's walking around out just on the street is Peter Parker, who would come up to him, but Ben Reilly. So, Ben Reilly, I don't know if all of you remember, used the original Scarlet Spider, clone of Peter Parker. And last we saw Ben Reilly, he was first a villain. He was actually operating as the latest Jackal. And then he had his own series, Scarlet Spider, where he was kind of a jerk character working as a weird rogue geneticist out in Las Vegas. So I really don't know. I didn't finish this. I didn't read all of the Scarlet Spider series, only the first probably 3 or 4 issues. So I'm not sure how that resolved. But he's back now. He looks normal and fine. Apparently he's not quite the jerk anymore. But he does tell Spider-Man that it was him in the suit, that he actually had lured him there so that they could talk, but because his suit is full of technology that tracks and listens to him, he had to get his attention but not quite tell him what it was about. So he wanted to be sure to arrange this meeting and kind of let him know what was going on, which is he is now Spider-Man, and that the remnants of Parker Industry, which includes the trademark and name and likeness of Spider-Man, has been bought by the Beyond Corporation. And the Beyond Corporation, the new owners of Spider-Man, want to get into the superhero game. So basically, they want to turn Spider-Man into what Iron Man is for Stark Industries. He's going to be a corporate superhero filled with gimmicks and logos and owned by this corporation that wants to supposedly do good in the world. So a little bit of art imitating life, is it not? Spider-Man's rights and likeness being challenged by a big corporate entity. So after their little talk and they pay for lunch, Ben Reilly goes ahead and returns to the Beyond Corporation, where you get a glimpse into his operation, and it's massive. He's got a team of people. He's got scientists. His girlfriend Janine is living up there. They're in a penthouse apartment in a lap of luxury. He does mention when he's talking to Peter Parker that he's getting paid ridiculous amounts of money to be Spider-Man. And he does say, kind of trying to reassure, Peter Parker that this is the best move going forward, that this is something that would have happened with or without Ben. So in his judgment, one, he does want to be Spider-Man again because he shares the memories of Peter Parker, but also because at least if he's controlling it, he's Spider-Man, he kind of knows where it's going. And he said if he would have passed him up, they just would have gone to somebody else. Now, how the Beyond Corporation knows about Ben Reilly, knows Ben Reilly has spider powers, all of that, I don't know. So they don't really get into that. I trust maybe those questions will be answered down the line. But moving on. So he goes, has a chat with kind of his corporate overlords who make a passing reference about radiation shielding in his suit, which seems a little weird at the time. And Peter heads over to his apartment and has a heart-to-heart with MJ. MJ is a little bit concerned. She thinks that he's wearing himself out, that he is tired and needs to take a minute to rest, and that he is hiding, dealing with his emotions by just going out and being Spider-Man. Their conversation is interrupted when he gets a text that NYU is under attack by supervillains, so he suits up as Spider-Man, heads out, and he finds the radioactive supervillain group, the UFOs, enemies of the Incredible Hulk, are attacking NYU for reasons. So he goes ahead and gets in a fight with them, but he finds out that Ben Reilly is already on the scene, and the two Spider-Men kind of engage together. The two of them have a fight with the U-Men. They ultimately overcome them, but as we've seen in the solicit, Spider-Man is very, very badly injured because the U-Men are highly radioactive. And as mentioned before, Ben Reilly's suit has radioactive shielding, but Spider-Man's is just a cloth nylon outfit. Gave him no shielding from the intense radiation of the U-Men. And so Spider-Man succumbed to radiation poisoning and just blacked out and collapsed. We don't know his condition beyond that. That's the end of the book. That is the plot of Amazing Spider-Man 75 in a nutshell. That's everything that happens. So, reactions from this book. And I have a few. First of all, Ben Reilly himself. So, I've said in videos before, I'm not a fan of Ben Reilly. I didn't care for the Clone Saga. I was collecting comics when it happened. I am that old. And I didn't like him then. I thought he was boring. So they've taken Ben Reilly, boring character, and made him into Ben Reilly, boring corporate tool. That's kind of my impression of Ben Reilly in the story. They don't go out of their way to make him that likable. He does try to kind of give a sympathetic reason why he's just taking over Spider-Man from Peter Parker without his permission of, hey, this was something that was going to happen. It's a whole legal thing. At least if it's me, we're kind of keeping it, where it should be. And if it wasn't me, it's going to be somebody else, and we don't know what they're going to do with it. But he also prefaces it. It says, Spider-Man was my life too, and I just want it back. So, yeah, I mean, granted that, from a writing point of view, that's at least honest. That's good characterization, but, it just doesn't help much to redeem Ben Reilly in my eyes, at least. And then there's a plot hole in this story, and it was bothering me. It was bothering me like a tiny radioactive spider burrowing into the back of my head as I was reading the end of this book. So to explain it, we need to go all the way back to Amazing Spider-Man number 476, where he's fighting this weird energy vampire called Morlun. Morlun was this big, unstoppable brute that wanted to kill Spider-Man because he goes from dimension to dimension to dimension, killing animal totems so he can drain their energy. So the way Spider-Man overcomes Morlun is he irradiates himself to the point that he is lethal to others, because radiation is Morlun's one main weakness. And so he's able to go and finally beat the snot out of Morlun because he is basically a walking biohazard. So it's established in canon that radiation doesn't really bother Spider-Man. His powers come from radiation. He was bitten by a radioactive spider. He's basically, they explained in another comic, Spider-Man Reign, that he is a low-level radiation hazard because in that book, Mary Jane died of radiation poisoning because of their relationship. So the fact that the U-Men are radioactive or able to overcome that, and their radiation is lethal to Spider-Man, it doesn't add up to what's been in established canon. And as a longtime Spider-Man fan, that just bothered me. Not to mention Peter Parker brought down by literal D-list villains also kind of bothered me. But especially when it happens in a way that canonically doesn't make sense. At least that's what I took from it, and it was really bugging me because as soon as I was reading that, I'm like, wait a minute, we've dealt with this subject before, and we know that's not how it works. So, other than that, I thought the book was good. The dialogue was good. It was well written. Interesting idea to see Spider-Man going through this type of problem. I mean, he's dealt with evil corporations before. You've had Roxxon. You've got that big evil corporation from Spider-Man 2099. Its names escape me. That seems to have resurfaced itself now here in present day. Alchemax, the Alchemax Corporation. So the Spider-Man dealing with an evil conglomerate is pretty standard Spider-Man stuff. So that's fun. I honestly would kind of like to see more of Spider-Man acting with in tandem. Almost give Ben Reilly and Spider-Man separate books, and the two of them interact, crossing paths every now and then. And it's very contentious because Peter Parker is legally not allowed to run around being Spider-Man. He's technically infringing on himself. Trademark infringement. So that's interesting. And I know we've got a lead up that was solicited where we're going to see Ben Reilly come across Miles Morales. I'm assuming to have the same talk of you can't be Spider-Man anymore for legal reasons. And So yeah, so we got some stuff. We got some interesting potential there, but I don't think it's going to come to fruition if Peter Parker's to be spend the entire time on death's door while the storyline plays out. So hopefully that's something that corrects itself fairly soon, because I do think there's some interest here for that. I mean, it's not a bad story. It's interesting. I think again it's a little bit of art imitating life, but that's what comic books are. So the only other problem I have, and this isn't a problem with the book itself, but the format in which Spider-Man's going right now, which is this weekly format. So my problem with that is now you're dealing with Spider-Man at $5 cover price once a week means you have to spend $20 a month to keep up with the adventures of Spider-Man. And that's, now we're into it costs more than most streaming services, which offer more content than a monthly comic book. So that, weigh that as you might. But my other problem with that is Patrick Gleason, who drew this book, did an amazing job. The artwork in this book is beautiful. And I would rather see a monthly book with a solid artist on it who draws every single issue rather than this revolving door of creators that they've had over the last several years that they've been having Spider-Man come out bi-weekly, and no artist that's working today can really keep up with that pace. So what they do is they end up having one artist come, they'll draw a 3-issue story arc, then that artist is off, and another person will draw the next couple issues, then so on and so on and so on. So it keeps coming out really, really fast. But the problem with that is while you have some artists or some arcs that are drawn by really solid creators, Humberto Ramos, Mark Bagley, Ryan Otley, then you've got these other stories that just come along, and they can range from good to mediocre to really bad. I mean, there's some artists that they put on Spider-Man that really just don't have the chops to handle Marvel's flagship title, yet we're kind of, we have to endure it because they want to keep with this schedule. And I get it. Spider-Man's probably one of their top-selling books, so having it come out twice a month, you have 2 top-selling books. Having it come out 4 times a month, you have 4 top-selling books. But, how much before the fans finally say, I just can't keep up with this. I'd have to drop too many titles that I care about to be able to read Spidey. And I think that it sacrifices the quality of the book because you can't just put a good creator on there and have them put out a solid monthly title when you're doing a weekly thing, and maybe every 4th issue is nice, every 4th issue or every other issue. I mean, come on. When you collect these books in a trade or when you go back and you want to reread it, it's ugly. It's hard on the eyes. It's hard to keep track with it. And worst of all, for the comic industry, it's inconsistent. So I don't like this current model, although I don't hate this new iteration of Amazing Spider-Man. Obviously, we're at the beginning, so we got to see where it goes, but I think there's potential. So potential is better than nothing, I guess. Anyway, that's my review of Amazing Spider-Man number 75. So let me know what you thought in the comments below. Are you a fan of Ben Reilly? I think we had this discussion ad nauseum not long ago, and all of you guys let me know exactly how you disagree with me. But now that we've seen Ben Reilly in this kind of current form, is your opinion the same? Has it changed? What do you think of this idea that Spider-Man is going to have to deal with this legal battle to trademark himself? I think that's a bit of uncharted territory for the character. And do you agree with my plot hole analysis? Because I think that is a major plot hole, in my opinion, especially when it's completely sidelined the character. This isn't just like a passing line of dialogue that doesn't add up here. So let me know in the thoughts below what you thought of Amazing Spider-Man number 75, and if you're excited for this direction going forward. While you're down there, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Help the channel grow. We've grown a lot in the last several months. I really appreciate you guys. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Again, my comic book is funding on Indiegogo, Malevolent Rising, link in the description, and I will see you in the next video.